We'll click and go live. And we're live. Hello, everyone. Richard Hart from twitter.com/Richard Hart Win, and Dr. Julian Hosp.
Richard, we're gonna have a blast here. I can see this already.
We're gonna have an exciting blast. So why is there a doctor in front of your name?
Okay, the reason why I have one is because I'm a medical doctor.
Okay.
Why is there a doctor? Like, why do I put it in front? Actually, two reasons. It ticks some people off, which for some weird reason I don't understand why it ticks them off. And I kind of like that a bit. Yeah, it's some weird. Well, I don't know. Need to create some friction, I always believe. And then the other reason is, I mean, I do have to admit, it builds some credibility, and then afterwards you have to back it up. But it kind of eases the door, out of foot into the door. Yeah, it's a fight. Every once in a while I take it off because I'm like, okay, maybe it's enough friction right now. But then, yeah.
I kind of have something similar in that I put thought leader on mine. People hate it. I'm like, well, you know what? I make new ideas. I popularize them. I do my job. I earn my stripes as a thought leader, and there's an underserved market. So it's like.
But you do this as well to really just tick also people off a bit, right? You know that you do this on purpose.
Actually, in this case, not. I don't actually need to try to tick anyone off because they just dislike me or like me off the bat anyway, just because of how I am. So I don't have to work for it. You know, like I don't need any extra drama. I have enough drama. I have enough haters. I have people that just spend all their time saying bad things about me just as like a religion. Like if you look in their post history, the only thing they post about is me. You're like, all right, well, this guy doesn't like me. But it's if you're known to the world, you are going to be hated. Period. It doesn't matter who you are and what you do. If you're Elon Musk and you create the quickest, safest car that has ever existed, people hate you. If you also create rockets that land themselves, people hate you. If you created PayPal, which people use and more people like than hate, they still hate you. So if no one likes that guy, well, I don't know why they like me because I've achieved infinitely less.
Man, on my screen, I'm not sure if you can see my screen. On the back of my screen, I have a quote that says, "The only way to avoid criticism is to say nothing, do nothing, be nothing." Aristotle. So, yeah,
it's pretty much. And then you're going to even get criticized for that. So it's like, it's better. My latest quote to that vein was, if you choose anonymity and you don't have a face and you don't have a voice, it's very hard to have influence in the world. So if you want influence, you really need to have a face and a voice. You know, there's a reason. Vitalik still goes on stage and writes code and has influence and educates and writes. He just wrote a great article on his blog that talks about the state of blockchains and what we've made progress on and what we haven't in the last 4 years.
Yeah, his reflection, I think, on the 2013 blog post he made or something, or 2014, I can't remember when he, yeah. How do you see this with Satoshi, though? Like, so how do you see this with Satoshi, though? I mean, he's well known, but he has like only in his spirit influence into the scene.
Well, I think he's dead. You know, people that are alive tend to at some point spend their money or defend their investment, and he's done neither of those things. And you know, back when he decided to disappear, there was regulatory uncertainty. You know, he might have got Dr. von Nothauses, the guy that started Liberty Reserve. You know, they locked him up or put him under house arrest and almost locked him up. You know, house arrest could be a form of being locked up, depending on how free you like to be, if you like going outside and such. And anyone that starts, you know, a new currency, kind of, that's their threat model, that's their risk model. You know, they shut down eGold and they shut down Liberty Reserve, and after those guys got shut down, anyone else in the game kind of wanted to play secretive about it. But now we've got regulatory certainty, and we've got governments passing laws in favor of blockchain technology and in favor of Bitcoin. And so that hide in the corner bullshit is now just a joke. It's garbage, right? Like, the only people coming out as Satoshi now are fake Satoshis. And I think it's because the real one is deceased.
Who do you think it was? Or do you think it was a group, or what do you think?
I think it was a single guy.
Really?
And I think he was in the UK based on timing analysis and using SE instead of ZE at the end of words. And I think it was my age or older, around 40 or older, based on double spaces after periods, which is something you learn on the typewriter. And then, you just kind of, when computers came out, you just did the same thing. He was a developer. His code kind of sucked, so he was very smart. So he was an academic developer.
Yeah, I agree.
Code is
part of academic, then
right.
A good developer, yeah.
Right, and I think he would.
Also, you don't buy into the idea that it could have been a group. So for you, it's
a group wouldn't have been easily timing attacked and de-anonymized through the times at which they post, which is any time you use real-time communication, that's what happens. So if someone says something and you instantly respond to them, then they knew that you were awake at that period. And if someone says something and you don't instantly respond to them, they knew that you either weren't awake at that period or were choosing not to, right? And so if you really want to stay anonymous, you have to mix your vocabulary, mix your spelling, mix your timings, never respond to anyone right after they say something. So anytime you're going to have a real back and forth dialogue where there's relatively real-time communication, your anonymity is pretty fucked at that point. And he had that form of communication. So a lot of people try and restrict the set of people that could have been Satoshi to members of the cryptography mailing list, which was the first place the white paper dropped, where all the other things that were quoted in the white paper dropped first as well. So it could be reasonable that someone on that mailing list was Satoshi, but people only, of the few hundred people that were on there, people only popularly know 4 or 5 or maybe 6. So that
agree.
leaves a good 200 that no one has really looked at or knows enough about. So
yeah. When did you get into the blockchain space anyways? I don't even know that.
Originally, I first saw it when it was on Reddit, when some guy had sold his house for it and it was $1. And then, I went and looked at my logs and saw when the big blocks were that I mined. And, I used to mine full blocks on my own with no pool back when Bitcoin was only 50 cents. So now it sounds amazing that you could get 50 Bitcoin block rewards, just for double clicking an exe. And at the time I was one of the first GPU miners. So it sounds awesome now because that would be $400,000.
Yeah,
but guys, back then it was $25. Okay. So, I'm not sure why you're so impressed by this when I say it, but it's the equivalent of saying I had $25. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
And then I bought in heavy at the $30 top and held that shit. So if you bought in right before me or right after me, you have a multiple for the same amount of input, right?
So you were worst timing to get in during that time, but you stuck.
Well, some of us assholes had to help make it, right? So it's someone had to help make the top. So that was me back then. I was a wildly successful business person. I retired in 2003. I bought in 2011. So I'd already been retired 8 years at the time. And just because you're smart and you're retired and you've had hundreds of employees, it doesn't mean you understand order books. And order books are actually weird esoteric things that you will never understand unless you're a trader. Unless you're a trader, you don't understand an order book usually, right? Now it's second nature to me because I'm a trader, but before then it was pretty hard to get, bid-ask spread, liquidity, slippage. You're like, what? When did you get in? Did you get in?
Yeah, of course. 2011 was the very first time. I was still a doctor back then, man. Worked in a hospital.
All right.
Patient told me about it. He made it sound so scammy. I didn't have any background in tech or finance or nothing, so had no association to Bitcoin. 2014, right. I dropped out of working in a hospital in 2012. So I wanted to do something in business for medicine, and I looked into any kind of new tech that was interesting for medicine, be it stem cells, CRISPR. Did a lot of machine learning ideas. And then, in 2014, I found out this new way to store data, especially patient data, called blockchain. I was like, wow, this is going to revolutionize medicine. And
how long until you got jaded and discovered the blockchain isn't that good?
Man, my very first video that I ever made was 2015, and it was like Bitcoin sucks, blockchain is the real star. And man, I left it on just like I think it's a good reminder to myself as well to, yeah, how at the beginning you sometimes you just don't know a lot of things, and
Right.
I still don't know a lot of things, but then you have a wrong perception. So yeah, it took I think it really took 1.5 years, and it especially for me. I mean, I had no finance background. I had to learn the tech. I had to understand cryptography and all these things. And I especially had to understand the financials that make crypto or Bitcoin so special. And it took until 2016.
My position
I
on
bought
this
in
is
2015 though.
good.
Yeah.
What? I don't even
Good
remember what the
timing,
price
actually.
was
It
back
was,
then. I guess
yeah,
it
it
was like
was
100 and something.
my
It was in the
first one
hundreds.
was 800, and then I panicked when it dipped, and I
Oh,
bought
okay.
back in 500. Yeah, so it was this.
Right.
It was the roll down
Yeah.
from Mount
Yeah, it
Gox.
was right. That sucks.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter when you got in Bitcoin, it matters whether you held. So like being in
I
early,
agree. I agree,
great.
man.
A
I
lot of
know so
people,
many people who came in 2010, and yeah, they made way less money than I had, and it was just purely because I just stuck it through.
yep. So I have a very simple method by which I tell people whether they should use a blockchain or not. If you need censorship resistance, then a blockchain is great. If you do not need censorship resistance, a blockchain is straight up cancer. It is the slowest, least reliable, crappiest, lowest throughput, actually just loses data straight out.
I agree.
What do you mean? I thought it was immutable. No, actually, blocks get orphaned all the time. And if you just wrote to the orphan block, you didn't actually write to the blockchain. You wrote to what could have been the blockchain, but the network decided not to. And unless you're constantly checking the network to make sure that data actually got written, your data just disappeared. And then one day there will be a fork. And you better hope that your
On the right side of
transactions
the
don't
fork.
get like it's oh you set a fee to pay to like get in a block. Well, block's full. Your data didn't write. Oh, fee was too low. Data didn't write. Oh, malicious fork. Like no, all horrible. Like all of those things are horrible. You don't want to endure any of that pain unless you really really need censorship resistance. And for instance, in the case of medical data, no one is trying to censor your medical data transmissions. No one.
Yeah,
So you do
it's true.
not need and should not use a blockchain. People talk about, oh, we're using blockchain for shipping and like making sure people's stuff is legit. I'm like, nope, no one's trying to censor that. No one's ever tried to censor that. Just use logs and timestamping and multi-sig. We've had all of that in databases for decades. Works great. Amazon does 50% of the entire commerce on the internet in the United States. They don't use blockchain. They'll sell it to you. It's a product they'll sell you, but they don't use it because it's garbage, right? Like, it would make everything worse. But people don't want to hear that. They want to hear the bullshit that they think will make the price go up. And so the narratives change over time, right? Bitcoin used to be this thing that everyone was going to build on. Guess what, guys? No one's building on it. There's less retailers than there was 2 years ago. There's less on-chain transactions than there was 2 years ago. There's, the two entities that tried to build on it, which were Omni and Counterparty, their tokens have gone to doing literally about $100 a day of volume. $100 a day of
Yeah, Tether
volume.
switched away. I mean, Tether went to ERC20 now.
Yeah, because it's better. It's better. It's more secure. It's faster. It interacts with the rest of distributed finance. Like, it's a no-brainer. So that narrative just died, right? So Bitcoin was going to be like this network that everybody built on, and then anybody that tried to build on it got murdered, right? So then like, oh, I guess that narrative went away. So what are we now? Peer-to-peer digital cash? No. There's less than 2.8 million wallets with $1,000 on them. 42% of the currency is owned by addresses holding over 1,000 coins.
What's
Not
your
a currency of the
story?
people.
What's your story in Bitcoin? Is your story in Bitcoin? Do you believe in the digital gold story? What's the story that you believe in? Because that's the story
I've
I
still
buy.
got a giant bag of this shit, and I still think the price will go up when China decides to stop being mean. We just have to wait a little while, right? But it's right now only used as a speculative instrument and as a store of value, and it's only useful as a store of value if you have a time horizon over 3 years.
Agree.
Because you could have bought the 20K top.
Statistics say 3 years, 8 months, right? So yeah.
I thought it was always under 3 years, but I'd have to check the chart if there's any
No,
type of question
the
about it.
statistics are if you have been holding Bitcoin for at least 3 years and 8 months, you cannot be minus.
Right. But this is also assuming that the game never changes.
Exactly.
I can
No,
tell
of
you
course.
the game
That's
changes.
yeah.
Like,
Of course. No, that's stats. Yeah. So
yeah, right.
yeah.
So, I am a realist. I will tell you how it is. I will tell you what Bitcoin is good at and what it's bad at. I will tell you what Ethereum is good at and what it's bad at. And every other bag holding piece of shit out there will lie to you and mislead you in the hopes that it pumps its bag. I see this all the
Okay,
time.
let's discuss some. I mean, I think we agree on those things. I think most altcoins are shit. I think there's very few coins right now that have a use case. I'm not as sold on the Ethereum use case. Maybe explain to me the use case. You just see that's going to be the killer use case for Ethereum. Now, I hold Ether way not as much as Bitcoin, but I'm still struggling a bit with the use case. So sell me on that use case.
Easy, super easy. So
give it to me.
First, you have to isolate price from utility. They're not related. The shittiest, scammiest, garbage projects in the world. You should know about these.
Not challenging on that one, brother.
They pump fucking hard, right? And then the currencies that actually have utility and are actually useful, they tend to not pump that hard, because getting more people to buy than sell in a primarily speculative market has nothing to do with utility. It has to do with hype and marketing and promotion and getting people to click the green buy button, right? So like take Monero. Monero is what people that bought Bitcoin thought they were buying. They heard about this anonymous digital currency, right? And all that crap. Well, Bitcoin doesn't have that, but Monero has that, right? But how's the price looking? Garbage. Why? Because life ain't fair, bro. Life is not fair. And I could list you another good project that is pretty cool, and the price ain't never going to go up. It's never going to go up. So let's talk about Ethereum, right? Am I bullish on the Ethereum price? Not really. Why? Well, Tether is now 50% of the transaction volume, or 33%. And they used to not be on that network as much as they are, because they moved all their Bitcoin transactions off Omni on Bitcoin over to Tether. And then that's a huge adoption win, right? Like, hey, we just got all of this extra use and all of these extra users, and so now our price should go up, right? So what did the price do? It just died. Didn't give a fuck. Okay, well then I guess more people using that substrate doesn't actually increase the value of the tokens. And if you think about it, why would it? Okay, some guy is now using the Ethereum network for transactions, and he's paying the miners a couple pennies to do his transactions. At what point during that is someone clicking a green buy button for the Ethereum tokens? Those couple pennies that you give to the miners isn't causing large purchases of ETH on exchange. So why would the price move up? And then once you realize that like adoption and success being a dumb pipe has no market pressure buying potential, then you can be very bullish on the technology and not bullish on the price. As a matter of fact, the better the technology is and the higher the throughput is, the lower the fees are and the even less buying pressure there is. So
okay, but so what's the use case? Like, explain to me the use case. You're like,
sure,
that's the use case for Ethereum.
Yeah, it is more secure than Bitcoin. It has never had.
Come on.
Sure, you ready?
Okay. Yeah. Okay, I'm ready. Okay. Come on. That's
sure.
Yes.
So, how many times has Ethereum rolled back the chain?
Well, once. I know once, and that was massive.
And they're going to say they didn't roll back the chain because nothing changed in the past. They just changed the future, right? They just took out the hackers' coins, right? Okay. Now, how many times has Bitcoin rolled back the chain?
Honestly, I don't know, because that was pre-my time. I think 2010 they did it or something.
Yes. Someone minted 6 billion Bitcoin out of thin air, and they had to roll back the chain. So they both rolled back the chain once. One was from a technical fuck-up that needed fixed, the Bitcoin one, and the other one was them just deciding not to let a hacker steal the money. Not a technical fuck-up. People that used the network technically fucked up, but the network itself worked fine. The people that built the DAO contract on top of Ethereum fucked up badly with a reentrancy attack. But the blockchain itself worked fine. Okay, so what about now? Well, a year ago, Bitcoin had another inflation bug where anyone that knew about it could have minted as many free coins as they wanted in excess of the 21 million limit. How did they get that bug? By improving the networking stack to reduce latency. And because it's spaghetti code and it's not modular, improving this thing caused the inflation bug because it touched the consensus. Well, in our system, like I have a token called HEX, and HEX runs on Ethereum, and our consensus code, what's the supply, how much do we inflate, who gets the inflation, all that stuff, it's locked in a smart contract that no one can edit. So you can't accidentally spaghetti code screw up the consensus. It's far, far harder to do, right?
I have the complete opposite view on this, because to me, Solidity as a smart contract language, like being able to do everything also means everything could happen. I mean, look at the parity problem. You cannot guarantee that your code is 100% sure. You can't guarantee that your code is secure. It's not possible.
I understand that, but you're dealing with the lesser of two evils. I have a network that has already launched 5 more than $1 billion projects. They're literally half of the top 10 cryptocurrencies. Half of the top 10 cryptocurrencies launched on or primarily use the ERC20 format or Ethereum.
Yeah, but you cannot compare quantity over quality. I mean,
yes, you can.
You ever see this video where you had these 40 little football kids playing around, then you had these 3 pros who outplay those 40 little kids?
That is a bad analogy.
No, come on, you're talking about all these.
No, you're appealing to attack surface, but you're pointing an attack surface that's not shared with what I'm talking about. Like you're pointing to a large attack surface that isn't what I'm using it for. So what your position is that Turing complexity gives developers an infinite number of ways to fuck up and hang themselves.
Correct.
And I agree with that. Yes, I agree with that. It also lets them do interesting things that computers are interesting for.
I agree as well. The question is there a use case for this?
Yes.
Do I need to have this? Because if I don't need the complexity, then
I can sell this in so many ways. So I'll just give you. I can tell you're getting impatient. So I'll give you the table of contents, and then you can choose your path. Okay. Ethereum is more secure. It has a more diverse mining ecosystem, which is ASIC resistant, which means.
Okay, I don't think it's more secure. I agree with the mining, but how can it be more secure? I need less money to attack Ethereum. I need way less hashing power.
That is not true.
Of course.
If I 10x the mining power of the Bitcoin network personally, would I improve the network by doing that? If I 10x,
what do you mean?
If I personally turned on hash rate that 10x the hash rate of Bitcoin's mining ecosystem, would I have improved the security of Bitcoin? So now there's X number of terahash, and then I just turn on 10 times more of that personally myself.
Yeah, but I mean, come on, you're running a 51% attack. You actually would weaken the
but it would be worse, right? So appealing to hash rate is actually stupid because we just showed an example.
No, but it's about distribution of the hash rate.
Exactly. And who has a better distribution?
I don't know the exact numbers for Ethereum, but
you can't do worse than Bitcoin's. You can't possibly do worse. When's the last time you met a miner? When's the last time one talked to you? They all live in China, dude.
You have 4 or 5 potential colluders who do you think run a 51% attack?
No, they're not going to run a 51% attack, but that's the only thing they're useful for preventing. They don't provide any other security.
I'm a malicious player.
You're not going to attack it through hash, ever. It's stupid. You'll just make a law. Because you'll just make a law and shut the nodes off. You literally just pass a law and you say you're not allowed to run a Bitcoin node. And then if they see anything running on port 8333, they shut it down. And if they start rotating ports, they do timing attacks. And they send a transaction themselves. And they go, oh, well, what responded? Oh, this node over there.
Until that happens, there's so much uncertainty in the network. There's so much FUD.
Hold on.
Let's back up. The entire thing is gonna
Let's back up. Bitcoin just had another mint as many free coins as you want bug 1 year ago discovered by a Bitcoin Cash developer.
Sure.
Bitcoin has no audits and no bug bounty program. Ethereum has a bug bounty program. Very simple, right? Ethereum has never had.
There is a foundation behind it. Bitcoin doesn't have that.
Right. Ethereum has more developers, a more aggressive network they're attacking, has launched or is the primary substrate.
But I disagree with quantity. You're talking about more and more and more. To me, it's about better. To me,
right. But how is the only better that you have is hash rate, and more hash rate is not better when it's centralized. So show me the qualitative difference on your side. So if everything I say is quantitative somehow, which I don't think it is, you show me qualitative for your side.
Okay, so qualitative for me is it's way harder to attack the Bitcoin network simply on
That's
based on hash
tautological.
rate.
That's not evidence. Right. The way that these networks have failed has never been hash rate based, and is very unlikely to ever be hash rate based because people aren't willing to shoot their mining equipment's value in the head.
I
right?
agree with you on this.
Right. So what we need is bug bounty programs and audits, because that's where the bugs actually happen
But how
and
is
keep
Bitcoin
happening.
supposed to do that?
They can't because they have a tragedy of the commons. No one can afford to fucking do it. So I paid for 2 audits, the 60 grand that it cost, out of my fucking pocket, because I have the money to do so. But no one's putting up 60 grand to audit fucking Bitcoin because of the tragedy of the commons. I wouldn't put up the 60 to audit Bitcoin, but I'll put up the 60 to audit HEX. So as long as there's a tragedy of the commons, it's not going to get fixed. So here's another. I can keep listing the reasons that Ethereum's better than Bitcoin. Higher throughput, lower fees, distributed finance. If you want to use a stablecoin in Bitcoin, do you know what you need to do? You need to leave the network, and you need to go through a centralized counterparty to try and get into a stablecoin. If you want to use a stablecoin in Ethereum, you know what you need to have to do? Stay in the network and use a peer-to-peer stablecoin that's already built into it. Oh shit, how much better is that? Crypto is made to remove counterparties. And if you use that siloed, walled-off thing that no one can build on called Bitcoin, you will be isolated from the rest of the finance world.
So I'm challenging on this because obviously you know that we have a project called DeFi Chain where we're building on top of Bitcoin and where we don't need centralized parties.
Why? Why would you do that? So bad.
No, it's going to be
You're
awesome.
paying the maximum fees for the least throughput for the fantasy security theater of higher hash rate, and that's where none of the attacks come from. And you have the worst auditing ecosystem.
You have the least
error.
attack surface by having a language that's like, well, I agree with you.
But that's not how attack surface works. If you're building on top of something, the Lightning attack surface has nothing to do with the Bitcoin attack surface. They're different repositories built by different developers that run on different ports, that run at a different compiled exe. They have absolutely fucking nothing in common. And whatever you're building on Bitcoin, the attack surface that it has is totally unrelated to the restriction of opcodes in Bitcoin. Totally unrelated.
Of course, I agree with you on this, but at the end, it's still a similar opcode set with some extensions to run DeFi.
No one is going to put your opcodes onto the mainnet, bro. Like,
we don't need that. We don't need to have our opcodes on the mainnet. I agree. I think
so. Why are you? So you saw Counterparty fail, and you saw Omni fail, and you saw Mastercoin fail, and you're like, yo, I want to be the 4th guy to fail. Why would you do that? And you already built a.
No, because it's a different value proposition. The value proposition that Counterparty and Omni and all had was to create colored coins, basically on another chain. And Ethereum just came with a complete different value proposition that was way more creative. Do I think Ethereum is actually going to succeed in the ERC20 token? I'm not sure. Just because there's so many doesn't mean it's success.
That's fine. Listen,
How many ERC20 tokens are out there that you think are a really strong success? Like, you could probably count them on one hand.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So,
and how many successful internet book retailers are there? And how many does there need to be? Right? And how many successful car manufacturers are there?
Exactly. So why do I need to have this in the first place? But so the main use case for us, at least what we believe in, is decentralized finance. And I think it works well. Ethereum creates this. And I think there's a fair reason for it to exist.
Let's back up. Let's make
store of value is Bitcoin. So building it around there, in my opinion, magnifies everything.
Okay, let's back up and make sure that we found resolution to these things. My position is that Ethereum is a superior network to Bitcoin, even though I don't own any of it. Okay, I only own about $100 of Ethereum, right? I may own a lot soon. We'll see. Okay. Ethereum has never had an inflation bug. Bitcoin has had 2. That's the most critical, shittiest bug you could possibly have, next to being able to just rewrite history. Okay? So any other statements or bullshit or analysis is completely moot after just saying that. Bitcoin has failed critically.
How many funds in Ethereum have been locked up and lost because of its inability to provide secure code?
That is that you are presupposing that this is like how many guns cause their owners to shoot people is the question you just asked, right? If you're given a Turing complete system, which gives you ultimate flexibility, it is your responsibility not to shoot yourself in the head. The code is not the one killing you. The Ethereum network didn't lose anyone's money except the hackers, and he got to keep it on the ETH Classic fork, right? The Ethereum network was used poorly by people that built on top of it. So you want to talk about the parity multisig hack? They didn't declare the contract constructor as private. And so someone else came along and acted as a constructor and just told it to fucking delete itself. So he literally just didn't write the word private. So not writing the word private when you built your smart contract does not attack the Ethereum network. The Ethereum network did not cause that motherfucker to not write the word private, okay? He just wrote shit code and it wasn't audited properly and therefore it got fucked, right? So if you believe in attack surface and you believe in probabilities, you want the least attack surface and the most eyeballs on it and the most money in it so that you know that anyone that could have a reason to attack it had a reason to attack it because it was so valuable. And that's what the ERC20 ecosystem gives you that nothing else gives you. No other complex thing that can do actual processing on a blockchain has had as much money go through it or as much auditing dollars go through it. TRX, EOS, USDT, Ethereum itself, and BNB all launched on or primarily use ERC20, and they're 5 of the top 10 value cryptocurrencies. And none of them had any fucking problems at all. None of them had any problems at all. It all went fine. For me to go beta test some other network and hope that they had an auditing ecosystem and hope that their networks weren't buggy and like discover all of the new fuck ups that they made that they didn't realize they made, like there's a reason they say don't roll your own crypto, because you will fuck it up. Right? And I am going to use the most tried and true, most secure thing that you've processed the most amount of money, and you just can't beat it. You cannot beat it. Everybody that built on Bitcoin died.
Way more money than Ethereum does. On the daily volume, Bitcoin is by.
But I'm not building Bitcoin. I'm building something that can do more than Bitcoin. I need actual Turing complexity to perform the game theory computations.
Why
for
do
my
you need
project.
Turing complexity? Like literally, why?
There's big.
No, seriously, because most things, you said it before, censorship resistance is the only reason why you need a blockchain. That's what you said. So now suddenly, why does Turing complexity come in there?
Because Turing complexity sounds like a really hard word, but it really just means you can fucking add and subtract and divide and store data as you need. That's all it actually means. All software does is math and storage, and that's fucking it. That's all it does. So I need to store data and do math differently than what the people that created the network had intended, right? And so my options are, I could either take all of that game theory and math and then roll my own fork of Bitcoin and worry about getting 51% attacked, or do a proof of work exchange and worry about getting 51% attacked, or run on the highest hash rate network in the world next to Bitcoin that isn't having any 51% attacks and never has had, and has never had an inflation bug, and has the best auditors, and has something that's had billions and billions of dollars routed through it. It's a superior value proposition. You're choosing to build on something where everything else that built on it fucking died, and whatever you do, by the way, you may not realize this, but part of the reason those things died is because Bitcoin doesn't want you spamming up its blockchain and taking value off to the side while you're filling up blocks. So if you have a successful project on Bitcoin and you derive an economic value of its own and its own token, right, which is I'm sure is going to be your economics model, right? You're going to have a token, it's going to go up in price is my guess. That value that goes into that token isn't going into the Bitcoin network, but you're spamming up their blockchain. So you know what they're likely to do? Shrink the opcodes.
You sync every 10 blocks with one transaction. You send in the Merkle route. Come on.
I'm just telling you what they've done in the past to Counterparty. You used to be able to write 60 bytes to an opcode storage thing, and then they were like, fuck it, now you can write 30.
They literally spammed every block. There's no spamming of the block.
I'm just telling you, you have a counterparty that doesn't like you.
So
you're building on a network that doesn't want you to build on it.
Okay, show me the project right now that allows you to use Bitcoin for decentralized finance.
A lot of them, but they all have centralized counterparty risk.
Exactly.
Tons, like every exchange.
But I'm talking about DeFi, not CeFi.
In Bitcoin, I don't know of any.
Exactly. That's the thing. And the reason is because they all work on Ethereum and they all need to have some kind of
lockups. Because Ethereum's better. It just is. But sure, okay, so it's fine. You like Bitcoin, you want to build on it. Okay, we'll just, it's fine. You like
I'm
Bitcoin,
not a
you want to
Bitcoin
build on it.
maximalist.
So you're going to be the first guy to build on Bitcoin successfully. It's going to be you. Because no one else was successful.
You heard it on your channel first.
Okay. All right. Good luck. Good luck, man. I hope those core devs like you, because they don't like themselves. They don't let each other. It's very hard to get a Bitcoin improvement proposal actually approved, because it's very hard to get consensus, right? Because Luke Jr. is in there telling you that we need smaller blocks. He wants a 250 byte block, right? So like there's core devs that don't like what the other core devs want. So if you think they're going to like whatever you're doing, oh shit.
Of course
Boy,
I mean,
you better be ready for an adversarial network.
Of course, they're gonna, of course. I mean, but you have this in every network. I mean, you have
No,
so
you
many
don't.
networks.
You don't have that in Ethereum. You do not have that in Ethereum. I went into the Ethereum subreddit. I went into the...
You believe in a network, but because of the aforementioned reasons, you don't believe in a price.
I missed your question. I'm going to ask you what it was right after I say this one thing. I went to the Ethereum subreddit on Reddit, and I said, hey guys, I want to make a list of things Bitcoin, that Ethereum does better than Bitcoin. Didn't get any traction. No one even wanted to participate. They're not into that shit. They eat soy, they kumbaya, and they're friendly and they're nice. That's how they are over there. And that shit ain't got nothing to do with Bitcoin. Because if I go over to the Bitcoin subreddit and I'm like, hey boys, let's talk about what we do better than Ethereum. Bam! We hate Ethereum! Ah! Like easiest thing ever, right? They're just different human beings that have different value systems. So to fork out hackers' funds in Ethereum, easy. To do on Bitcoin, probably harder. To get improvements in the Ethereum network, easy. Because they want to experiment and try different stuff and let 1,000 flowers bloom and all that jazz. And Bitcoin, it's like, nah, we ain't doing barely anything. Last upgrade we got was 2 years ago, which was a 25% throughput increase with SegWit and transaction reliability fix. And what have you got since then? You've got good maintenance upgrades. I mean, this last update they did was really good, but it's all maintenance stuff, right? It's all making things like this much better, like 100 things that are this much better, but there's no actual big thing. Absolutely none. Absolutely nothing, right? No big thing. But in Ethereum, you get a bunch of big things, right? It's a different network made by different participants. Now, the value capture in most systems is the endpoints, which is why your internet company wants to sell you television shows, because they can make money selling you television shows and they can't make money as a dumb pipe. Blockchains are pretty much operating the same way in the Ethereum network. Ethereum's price isn't going up, but if you add up the market caps of the coins on top of Ethereum, they are going up. So Ethereum is kind of becoming a dumb pipe and letting all of the other endpoints, which onboard people and have value propositions, accrue the value, right? Bitcoin is going to be an adversarial network and not going to like seeing you capture any value whatsoever that doesn't pump the BTC price, and they will do shit to shut you down.
But of course, that's exactly what's happening, and that's because it's true DeFi, and it will lock up Bitcoin. So how, to me, that's exactly the value proposition on top that the Bitcoin mainnet doesn't have. At the moment, I do see it as store value, and suddenly you have it as a true asset. You can use it as an asset that you can get a loan in return, and so on.
Look, I like distributed finance. Like here's the way that I think of it. If you want to use a stable coin, I don't like stable coins. I've never owned one, right? Maybe for like 10 minutes on some shit exchange.
Sure, I don't own stable coins either.
But like, I don't like the idea of adding a counterparty between me and a bank account when I can just deal with the bank directly. I think we all agree on this. Right. Do you even think this about DAI being? I think DAI has less risk because you can't seize its bank account, but it still has some risk because people do some voting. But it still is better than having some guy between you and bank. Risk? Sure, it's there, but I think they got audited by Trail of Bits, and you can't do any better. So that's as good as you can do. Like the auditor we use is just as good as Trail of Bits. It's chain security, but like
that there's still a premium on, like, if you're lending DAI versus Tether, you still pay a premium on DAI or you receive a premium actually because of the smart contract risk. So the market actually disagrees with you. The market says lending.
Look, I don't like any stablecoin, even that one. I like DAI better than Tether, but I don't like either of them, right? Like I would rather make mad gains in choosing the right token and get a 4,000x. I'd rather get that than sit around and make fucking nothing with virtual fake fiat. Like, not interested in that.
Okay.
Maybe someone else likes that shit, but I don't. So I compare Bitcoin tried to do currency and failed entirely. 100% failed. But ended up with store value, which is more valuable. Cool, right? Still got a big bag of Bitcoin, hope the price goes up.
Can I jump in there? Do you
Sure.
see any decentralized currency actually be currency, or do you think that will be a domain that will
take
be
a long time.
By centralized institutions?
It'll definitely happen. It just takes a long time. It will definitely happen. It just takes a long time.
What's a long time? Is that 25 years? Or what's it?
Could be 15 years. Could be 10 years. Because you need the killer app to start onboarding millions of users. Because it takes a lot of millions of users, a lot of days to onboard, some number of
That's
billions.
where I always believe, like something like Libra will
Sure.
always taste Bitcoin,
Yep.
for example.
Yep. Yes. Yes. A company that has billions of users will onboard whatever small percent of their billions and have more millions than whatever your crypto project currently has. Period. That's the math, right? Now, will they be as censorship resistant? Probably not.
Yeah.
Does anyone really care? No, because they buy shit that's totally not censorship resistant, like stablecoins, right? The reason I mention stablecoins to you is because most people don't realize the number one crypto that does the most volume of any crypto ever invented is Tether. Yeah. True, real ass volume, not
true.
fake.
It is true.
And since people want that, if you have one that you can plug into on the same chain, if you try and do finance and have to jump off the chain, you're fucked, because you have to trust an oracle to tell that chain what's going on with the other chains. And that oracle is your central point of failure. And if you have a central point of failure, you can skip the blockchain and do it in SQL or Oracle, the actual database company, and then just skip the blockchain, right? And have higher throughput and lower fees, and you have to trust this guy anyway. If you want to do distributed finance, you have to do it all on the same chain. And then you can have atomic cross swaps and trustlessness and speed and reliability, and all these contracts can call each other. So my contract can be called by other contracts. So people can encapsulate it and make one that lets you trade staked funds, or they can encapsulate it and add margin to it without the central risk bullshit. So I look at Bitcoin like a silo, like AOL, and I look like the Ethereum distributed finance system, like the actual internet, where everything can talk to everything else. Because right now, if you build on Bitcoin, it's going to be you talking to you.
Each other at the moment. What does Ethereum talk to? It talks to each other, and that's like what, 20% of the market cap. And then Bitcoin,
yes, but it's also the number two of all of them, and it's like. If you're saying that it doesn't do enough volume yet, then that's because DeFi sucks. It's not because Ethereum sucks. There's nothing wrong with Ethereum. If DeFi sucks and it doesn't have adoption yet, that's its own problem. It's not because Ethereum isn't doing its job properly.
I still think Ethereum needs to solve its scalability issues. I really believe. I mean, look.
Blocks aren't full.
Huh?
The blocks aren't full, and they have pretty much solved it, apparently. We'll see.
Yeah, apparently. This is like every project. Oh, we have solved this. Or apparently
yeah, but they've been fucking around for so long that eventually something might actually happen good. All software comes out late. All software comes out late. But sometimes actually the shit finishes, right? Late, but finishes eventually. Like
I'm optimistic on this. I have to admit, I'm optimistic on Ethereum actually delivering. What I hear here in Singapore, and there's a lot of ERC20 projects here, and a lot of people who are very close with Ethereum. And when I talk to them, a lot of them are very optimistic. So I agree with you on this.
Well, I mean, even if everything remained code-wise the same, if you just change some of the hard-coded magic numbers in there with, block timing or block size limits, you should at least get the increases that the hardware substrate gives you, right? Like the latency you can't change because of the speed of the light, but everything else you upgrades when the hardware upgrades, right? So you should be, it's like in Bitcoin, just having a 1 megabyte block and never moving it up, even though everyone's computers and internet connections are faster. It's not that great, right? The shit should move up a little bit. And even in their old roadmap, they had it moving up a little bit. And I haven't looked at that roadmap in a long time. It's been 2 years. So can we get 100 kilobits, bro? Can we get 100 kilobits?
Yeah.
So back to Ethereum. Lowest fees, no 51% attacks, no inflation bugs.
Still a use case that has to go on Ethereum.
Ethereum itself is just a substrate. As long as that substrate works for you, if there's other blockchains that support whatever language your smart contract's written in, which is probably Solidity, then you can just run on those networks too. So, you could run on TRX, or you could run on EOS, or you could run. Use case? That's the problem. You're making a false assumption that the qualities of the Ethereum network are somehow any use case whatsoever. You're misunderstanding how it works.
No. The assumption or the question that I ask is, any business that has a viable business model has to solve some pain point, some problem, and it has to do it a little bit better than existing solutions.
A lot of people say 10x better, but Sure, and you should know that word better than most.
Yeah, but I think I don't think it has to do it that much better.
No, it
I
doesn't
think
have to
many
do that much better.
enough to have a little bit better, right?
So who are Ethereum's customers? Ethereum's customers are other projects. Who are the end users dealing with? Other projects. When Ethereum was its own pump thing and was doing its own pump thing, it was the project, and then it was selling you it's going to be a world computer. And it didn't do that, right? So Ethereum's value proposition on its own has pretty much failed. And as I've shown you, when they moved the USDT transactions onto Ethereum, it didn't do good for the price. It just made everyone's transactions more expensive, right? So I don't think that Ethereum has a compelling price case for bringing on more users. I don't think it does. And I don't think that matters because I don't have a bag of it.
At some point, this is related. At some point, there have to be economic incentives for the network to grow, to be stable, for people to invest money into this. That's exactly my point.
It's all of the coins built on it. It's all of the coins built on it. So like half of these
quantity over quality. There's maybe 5 projects, 10 projects that are really viable as an ERC20, and even they are questionable. Why do they have to be an ERC20 token? I know why.
They could be on anything else.
ERC20 tokens purely for fundraising.
Look, they could be on anything else. Yes. I'm not bullish on the ETH price. Like I get it. I'm bullish on the ETH technology. Listen, I'm getting cheaper, more secure transactions for my project and able to plug into all of the rest of DeFi and not going to get cut off in an adversarial network relationship because I chose that ecosystem. And every other coin that offers something similar has less hash rate, less developers, less aggressive roadmap, less testing done, everything's worse. So if you don't like ETH,
you sound like the engineers when I talk to them were like all about Linux because it's such great tech. But then at the end, they have to find fixes and connections for everything, and it's not user friendly, and no one actually.
So whether you use Linux or Windows has entirely to do with what you want to do. If you don't like rebooting your computer, Linux is the best. If you want to play a video game, Windows is the best. If you want to
actually use your computer, then Mac is the best.
Mac's okay, but I mean, there's problems with it too. Like, do you like a weak ass graphics card? Do you like your graphics card overheating and throttling? Do you like paying twice the price for the stuff that you could try and upgrade your computer with? Do you like a keyboard that works? Of
course, I agree. Like you pay for that, but yeah.
So everything has pros and cons, and everything has design trade-offs. And I understand what sucks about Ethereum, and I understand what sucks about Bitcoin.
Technology is so great, and the tech is so awesome.
That doesn't mean the price is going up. It doesn't mean throughput will get fixed, but it's the best we got now. It's just the best we got now. And it seems like it's getting farther ahead in the best category. Like I'm not here to say like ETH is the best thing that's possible, but it's surely the best thing we have now.
About if this is like. Honestly, this is a thought that I've not even thought through. Can a project in the crypto space be successful without the price having some kind of appreciation or increase? Is this not going to kill the ecosystem from within?
Yes, it can.
I would have to give this some deeper thought. I honestly don't have an answer to you on this.
I've got this figured out. It's very simple. Blockchain, not Bitcoin, doesn't work because proof of work only works if the token has value. Okay. So you must have some minimum value in the inflation reward for the miners or have a high enough fee market in the miners to prevent 51% tax. You do actually need that. But the miners are vastly overpaid currently, which is why you don't see 51% attacks on easy to attack networks. If 51% attacks were more common, then you would need even more fee structure or inflation rewards to pay the miners to prevent those attacks from happening, right? So,
but don't you see that risk that if there's no economic incentives, that it's just going to die from within?
It's never happened to any blockchain before. The risk that we have is bugs in the code.
Yeah, but I think we don't have enough. We don't have enough time sample.
We do. 10 years is long enough. We've had enough crypto.
I'm not sure. There's still so many projects that just linger along. And I think exchanges still have enough incentives.
But here's the thing. You're devaluing the value of those projects by thinking they don't have a high enough price, but no one's losing money on Dogecoin. No one's losing money on Dogecoin. It's worth $250 million, and it's a joke coin, and no one's losing any money using it. And it works just fine because a fork of Bitcoin from a couple years ago works just fine because Bitcoin was just fine a couple years ago. Litecoin works fine, Monero works fine, Ethereum works fine, Bitcoin works fine. All of these things will transmit your value very reliably, and you don't have to pick a winner or loser. They can all coexist, and they can all fit their little niche, and they all work just fine. There's nothing wrong with any of those projects.
In and out of the money addresses on Dogecoin, that's funny because I know that, and it's like 62% of the addresses on Dogecoin are in minus. 62%.
And
so I don't know the price.
I would actually you can still use it. You don't have to hold it to use it. Like you can't, I already said this at the beginning of our conversation. The utility of the technology has nothing to do with the price. Nothing.
Yeah, but literally. That's the question where I'm going to be, I need to think this through. If you can actually be right on this, that's a bit of a challenge.
How about this one? Bitcoin's the best it's ever been technologically. Fucking price dropped 85%, bro. So if the price was related to the technology, and the technology is as good as it's ever been, and the mining hash rate is the highest it's ever been.
Centralization actually need good tech. Does it? Is the tech the quality? Is tech the qualifying factor?
Of what?
Of how good a blockchain is. Is it the tech or is it other parts? Is it decentralization? Is it network effects as user numbers?
Well, some of these are probabilistic.
Bitcoin is by far ahead.
If it's like, what's the value of the door lock in your house? Well, are people actually trying to break in? If people are actually trying to break in, it's a great value. But if you live in the middle of nowhere and no one even knows where you live, that door lock ain't worth shit. And it's sitting right next to a window. So if someone in the house in the middle of nowhere, if someone wants to break in, you think they're not going to just pop the window, right? So the value of a door lock is based on your threat vector, your attack model. It has nothing to do with technology. It has to do with something outside the technology, the attacks. So
do you think that ERC20 that there's going to be an ERC20 project that's actually going to overtake Ethereum in market?
I do.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I think mine will. Yep.
Okay.
Because the only thing that matters is more. You don't have to be. I mean, I don't think Vitalik's the most self-confident guy, but he did pretty good. Like I believe that what drives the price of a cryptocurrency up is more people pressing buy than pressing sell. And I think the technology that's in the network is only extremely lightly tangentially related to people pressing the green button or the red button. So if you look at who's onboarding millions of users in the world right now, it's scams. Scams are onboarding millions of users.
They have MLM schemes behind them.
Exactly. And they make big promises, and they get people's money in, and they do a very good job of it, and they have marketing budgets. Ethereum doesn't really produce any ads. If they do, they're poor. Bitcoin doesn't really produce any ads. If they do, they're poor. Bitcoin and Ethereum don't have referral programs. Well, all of the things that onboard millions of users do have referral programs, like Amazon, like Tesla, and like the Ponzi schemes. My project has a referral program. My project shows you huge percentage returns in HEX, and they're mathematically accurate. Not USD. I have no idea what the USD price will do.
Sure.
So guess what? I have a referral program. I have very high percentage returns to show you, higher than the Ponzi schemes. And it's trustless, it's audited, it's free for Bitcoin holders. So we have a freemium onboarding, which is how they got me. They got me with the freemium double-click EXE. Yo, here's some coins. Isn't this fun? Haha. Now give us all your money. And then you send them the check. You send Mt. Gox your money, right?
So how much do you think your prejudice towards all this is because of our project, and how much, because obviously ours is built on Bitcoin and yours is built on Ethereum, and how much do you think is based on rationalism? Because I think I lose prejudice in there.
I lose hundreds of followers a week by telling the truth about what I believe. Hundreds. If I tell people the truth about Tether, I lose probably 30% of my followers per week, right? Of the hundreds I lose a week, I lose about 30% for telling the truth about Tether. For saying that Ethereum is better than Bitcoin, I probably lose about 60%. And then I lose another 10% by telling people they should stop trading.
Do you think that is because you're wrong, or do you think that it's because those people are wrong?
No, these people, they're not technically qualified to adjudicate correctness or incorrectness of any of my statements. They're not smart enough. What they are smart enough to know is what they own a bag of. And since I was a Bitcoin maximalist and I said terrible things about Ethereum, just like you're saying now, look how much money was lost. You know, how many times do you want to see people lose millions of dollars until you realize it's a bad idea? Yeah, that's all true, right? And I leave that Medium article that I wrote up because it is all true. But then when you get to the nuance of it, you're like, yo, actually, they used it improperly. They just didn't write the word private, and that has nothing to do with the Ethereum network. And actually, Bitcoin's had 2 inflation bugs, and Ethereum's had 0. And actually, Ethereum has introduced and uses, or is the substrate that introduced or is used mostly by half of the top 10 cryptocurrencies. You're like, oh shit. And actually, if you want to use a stable coin and keep it on chain and have real distributed finance, you can plug in with Legos of finance all these different things in that ecosystem. And with Bitcoin, the only other thing in the world that has higher hash rate, you can't do anything, right?
I feel you're focused so much on quantity. Like for you, it's always, there's so many projects.
I think you're
and I care a lot about quality. And to me, quality is, and I mean, at the moment, I'm going to stick with this. I need to think just through.
You've got hash rate, and so it's funny that.
I'm also looking, where do people put their money into? And I still believe that a project that's dying in price is going to struggle, even though it might have the best tech. It just means that no one cares about it. It means that the tech is
it's better for me if Ethereum has a lower price. My transactions are cheaper. Until it reaches a critical through point at which people start 51% attack it, I prefer the price to be as cheap as possible. And I prefer other projects on it kind of die so that I have even more space open for my project. That's all better for me.
The miners in theory can just ask for more gas, so it doesn't matter.
Well, yeah, but they can do that in any blockchain, right? It's like free to mine, free market ecosystem. So I think it's funny that every time I talk about something that's quality, you call it quantity. And then every time you talk about something that's quantity, you call it quality. So the only thing you've talked about is hash rate. And what could be stupider computation than hash rate? It's not even computation. It's literally just brute forcing. That when Bitcoin says we're solving a hard math problem to mine blocks, that's actually a fucking lie. It's not a hard math problem at all. You're literally throwing shit at the wall. And you're overclocking to get even more inaccurate shit, but your inaccuracy is worth it because you can get like 8% more errors, but 10% more hash rate and be up 2%, right? Like,
no, I don't want to appear that I'm a Bitcoin maximalist because I'm really not. I do see the merits in Ethereum, but I still haven't understood the use case for Ethereum.
Okay, so fuck Ethereum. Let's just talk about Bitcoin. What is the quality? It's had 2 inflation bugs. It's had to roll back the chain once. It never gets any upgrades.
Yeah, okay, the quality.
Lightning has bugs, and Lightning has nothing to do with Bitcoin, I might add.
Okay,
so show me the quality.
To me of Bitcoin is it's the most decentralized, the most censorship resistant, digital store of value that I know of.
It's obviously false.
That I feel the most, and that the most people agree on. Let's say it this way. So the most people agree on it. It has the largest network effect. The network effects are massively, massively valuable.
I agree with that. I agree it has the most users probably.
Bitcoin has this by far to everyone else. So that is why I would feel the most
users, most liquidity, best legal certainty. I agree with that.
Yeah.
But censorship resistance? No. Anyone can join the Ethereum network with their GPU. You can't join the Bitcoin mining network. Do you mine Bitcoin? Do you know anyone that mines Bitcoin? Right.
I prefer.
That's why it's not secure. That's why it's not secure. It's not secure. It's not censorship. Bro, in China, they just shut down 173 exchanges like this. And they snap their fingers. If China snapped their fingers on SHA-256, do you want to know what would happen? If they nationalize the Bitcoin miners, do you want to know what will happen? The vast majority of all hash rate for Bitcoin in the world will be Chinese. And they don't let you watch South Park. And they don't let you watch Winnie the Pooh. And they don't let you use Twitter. And they don't let you use YouTube. And that's the reason no miners have ever spoken to you. Because they can't speak to you. Because the government won't even let them see your fucking posts. Right? That's the actual state of the Bitcoin security model. Right? And even
I think that's a bit overstated. I think there's enough miners outside of China.
Dude, no, there's not, because enough isn't enough. What is enough? Less than the majority is not enough. A minority is not enough.
Okay, so let's say the Chinese, let's play devil's advocate. Let's say the Chinese start attacking the network, and let's say they are evil. So what?
Okay. So then you fork.
Seriously,
so then you fork. And you try and get value sucked into your thing, and then you discover that they not only control the hash, but they actually control all the new money coming in too. So it's not, they don't just control the hash rate. They also have the biggest exchanges. They also have the most users. Their president, when he says something nice about blockchain, moves the fucking price up 43% a day. When the president of the United States something bad about fucking Bitcoin, price goes up 10%. When he says something bad, right?
All my research, all the sources, there's still more value in Bitcoin stored outside of Chinese hands than in Chinese hands.
But that's not the question you're asking. The question you're asking is about mining security model. First of all,
but that's just one of the things. So that's just one of those things. The rest is.
Yeah, but there's maybe only three or four things. So it's not like there's 10 of them.
So, okay, you want to tell me that if let's say there's $1 million on the table and you have to put it into one coin.
Right.
That's it. You can just choose one chain. That's it. And which chain is this?
Well, chain or coin?
Yeah, one coin. Like this is the one that you can only invest this into one coin.
The coin I invented, HEX. But since it doesn't exist for another 7 days, I would say Ethereum, even though I don't own it yet. And I'll tell you why. Absolutely, even just for price now. Every motherfucker that shilled altcoins and made money on altcoins, including you, is a Bitcoin maximalist now. Which means all you guys sold your bags.
I didn't make money on my altcoin. I wish I did. Seriously. The reason I'm an altcoin, and I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist, but the reason I understand where all this is coming from is because you do understand what doesn't work and what works. And you will see
these all work. Bitcoin works great. Ethereum works great. We're just talking about fantasy attack scenarios, which are probably never even going to happen.
Why I think you're bullshitting and saying that you would put all your money into your coin. That's something I never said, and that's something I never did. And the reason is because your coin right now is not decentralized. It relies heavily on you and on the team and so on. In Bitcoin, even in Ethereum, it doesn't rely on one person. It relies on groups. So if you put your money into one coin, you probably wouldn't want to bet on one person or on a small group.
In crypto, all of these coins are highly correlated. So even if you think you're not putting all your money in one coin, they all fucking go up and down together. So really, you are kind of putting all of your money in one coin.
It's not that Bitcoin cares about Ethereum. It's about everyone looking at Bitcoin.
Bro, in 2017, the only reason we had that pump is because Ethereum's little network of interesting ERC20 tokens onboarded millions and millions of users that hadn't already fallen for the narrative of digital gold. So they fell for the narrative of world computer.
That's not true. I spoke about the narrative of digital gold since 2016.
I'm agreeing with you. That's what I'm saying is they already got your money, and so you didn't have any extra money to give because you're already all in. Once you already are all in Bitcoin, you're actually useless to Bitcoin because you don't have any more economic mass to put in that shit. You got to go work a day job and save up again so you can actually add more value. The reason that we pumped in 2017 is because there was a new ecosystem of narrative that was untapped, which was the Silicon Valley, Kumbaya, soy, venture capital guys that weren't falling for the libertarian guns and, don't tread on me flags. It was a different economic sales pitch which appealed to a virgin bunch of people that hadn't had the chance to get wrecked yet. And so they all got onboarded and they all got to buy the top and then they all got to get wrecked, right? So just like I got in at 30 and got to watch that shit go down to a penny, the people that got in at 1,200, you got in at 8, they got to watch it go down to 266. And now the people that got in at 20K got to watch it go down to 3K. And then the next guys will get in at 50 or 60K and they'll get to watch it go down to 20K, right? This is how these cycles work. But we need a new pool of money that hasn't been wrecked and emptied yet. And we need to get to them before the fucking Ponzi schemers empty them all out. So right now, those Plus token, BitConnect, Cloud token, Fairwin, OneCoin, they're emptying people out and taking all their life savings. And once all their money's gone, you know what they can't do? They can't buy an honest project anymore because they're fucking broke, right? So if you want to save these people from getting destroyed, you got 3 options. You can either complain to the regulators and they're understaffed and there's no possible way they can keep up and they can only attack after the money's all gone and they don't get any of it back. That shit doesn't work, right? What else can you do? Beg and cry and plead that they don't fall for the scams. That shit doesn't work either, or all the begging, crying, and pleading I was doing in 2017 would have had an effect. Didn't have any fucking effect. As a matter of fact, if I say bad things about a project, I've said bad things about fake Satoshi since the minute I heard about that motherfucker. And guess what? He's the figurehead of a top 10 cryptocurrency now. Shit doesn't work, right? Motherfuckers don't listen. So telling them not to get scammed doesn't work. The law enforcement doesn't work. So what's the third thing left? Get to those people with advertisements to get their money out of their hands before the scammers do, and do it with an honest project. That's the only way to save these people. Or outlaw all any digital commerce kind of thing, I guess. But then the Ponzi schemers are just going to find some other way to get them, right? They get them with Amway, they get them with, Herbalife or whatever. If you don't get these people's money with an honest project, they're going to lose it to something shitty. It's just how it works.
Sure. I agree.
So I adapted in my project every single pumpamental that I could think of. And the only one that's missing is fake partnerships. And I don't think fake partnerships are that hard to do. But if those kind of things were going to happen, I couldn't tell you about them because of the Howey test. People say, oh, we're partnering with McDonald's. Yeah, you're shopping at McDonald's for lunch is what you're doing, right? You got some weird country's weird little licensee. Like the OneCoin girl got put on the cover of Forbes. Why? Because you could just buy it in Bulgaria. Of course. So she's on the cover of Forbes in Bulgaria, right? So, like, I'm trying to make the world a better place by inventing something that has never existed before. If you believe that peer-to-peer trustless finance should replace all of the crappy middlemen, gotcha capitalism, bankster crap that we have now, then the second most valuable product of the bank is time deposit. And no one's building it. No one has ever built it. And I built it. And someone had to build it. And Bitcoin can't do it. It's already got time locking, but it can't pay you interest for doing it. Otherwise, you could use Bitcoin.
We believe that DeFi is huge, and we just want to build it on top of Bitcoin. I don't think our opinions so far apart.
Listen, look, you might be able to make it work. Don't misunderstand me. You 100% might be able to make that work. If you assume the network's adversarial, and if you don't require that many transactions to operate, and if you're okay with the network being full sometimes, and if you're okay with paying $70 for a transaction fee, if you're okay with that shit, you can probably make something tier 2 work on Bitcoin. Yes, it's doable, right?
Yeah.
But none of those things has anything to do with the value proposition of your customer, right? We're just talking about like what kind of oven my cook uses. The fucking customer doesn't care when he buys a steak what kind of oven the cook uses, right? We're talking about shit that you and I care about as like software design guys.
That's what I'm saying.
The end user doesn't give a fuck.
The same thing. We just use a different cook, obviously.
Oddly enough, look, a lot of people say you're a scammer. A lot of people say I'm a scammer, but you actually made money. People say I'm a scammer. I didn't make any fucking money. People say you're a scammer. I hear you made money. I wish we agreed on less. I wish we could argue more because this sucks, right? It would be because you have like that connotation around you or whatever. It would be great for us to disagree more, but so far everything I've heard you say seems pretty fucking reasonable. So,
look, the reason why people think that I'm a scammer, or that you're a scammer, or that we all make money is because they assume they don't know the facts, and that's what it comes down to.
So what I think is, I have processed millions and millions and millions of credit card transactions, and I understand how that ecosystem works, and I have seen other people try and start like, hey, I'm going to create some company, and then we're going to say you're an employee, and then we're going to give you a debit card, but really you're not an employee, and really we're just trying to game the system, and really we're just trying to sell these debit cards. And I've seen that shit get shut down so many times. And I was like, yeah, 10X is basically one Visa regulator guy being like, nah, and clicking no, and then your business model disappears.
And that's what happened.
Right. So I knew that would happen, and anyone that's been in credit card processing would know that happened. But you kind of built a thing on it anyway. And it was weird to me because, like, so for me, I would consider that scamish because anyone could have predicted that would occur because we've seen it occur so many times before. And then I see you do shit that isn't scamish, right? Like I saw apparently your guys do the first atomic cross swap between an ERC20 and Bitcoin, but you can only get it to go one direction. Was that called Copart or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Comet.
What was it called? Comet?
Comet, yeah.
Yeah. So that wasn't scammy. That was real innovative dev shit. And, you know, maybe that's the kind of thing you can only do when you've got money from some other thing you're doing, right? So
look, honestly, I think nothing of what we had intended on doing was in any way scammy. Did we make mistakes? Yeah. I think, and that's what it's going to show now is I think it's just, there was maybe some politics within the company that I had underestimated that my co-founders used. And that's where it is right now. And I think,
well, look, if Visa wouldn't just shut down everybody, the world would be a better place, right? Maybe. Like the banks aren't really your friend, right? They fuck up a lot of good businesses. So it's a question of how much. It's like, okay, Tether got $750 million jacked off them. Was that really their fault, or was it the bank's fault? You know what I mean, right?
Sure.
So I think that when you try and, so it's like me. People ask me like, hey, when people send Ethereum to the contract, where does it go? I'd love to tell you. And I'd love to tell you all the cool shit that might happen, but I can't because the government says that if you expect profit, you might be a security. So I have to make sure that you expect no profit from the work of others, right?
Sure.
So I have to do everything I can to make sure that that leg is non-security, or else you can't list on exchange, because these are not licensed dealer brokers. If your token's a security, you can't get listed on Bittrex, period. You can't get listed on Poloniex. You can't get listed on Coinbase. Right? They're not broker dealers. So people keep asking me this question, which threatens the safety of the project. And I have to keep telling them the hard answer, which is, I want to tell you, but I can't. So deal, right? Like, I can't tell you. I have no expectations. Expect absolutely nothing from me or anyone else. The project is what it is. If it appreciates because of its awesome design. It's not because of some entrepreneurial effort by someone else. Or there's another word that they use, which is like, it's like required or essential. I think it's called essential effort, right? Like if this guy stops working, then the project fails, some kind of shit like that, right? Like you mentioned that too. You're like, it's centralized. Not really, dude. It's not. It's a smart contract. It sits there. You can run it or not run it. It's going to do what it does. You're the network. There's no one with other secret codes that can like ask it to do different things, right? Like, so, and it's designed that way on purpose, right? Like in an airdrop, someone else hands you coins, and that has tax consequences for you, apparently, in the United States. In a fork, there's some common code. Well, in ours, the only kind of common code is we fork the UTXO set and make a top hash of it after we remove the Mt. Gox coins, so they can't claim. There's no other code in common, right? There's no Ethereum code other than the ERC20 base template from OpenZeppelin 2.0, and everything else is custom. We had to write it. So there's very little code. The operational code is nothing in common. The balances code, the UTXO fork, is slightly in common. And then it's not an airdrop because you mint your own coins. And so what's it most similar to? It's most similar to Bitcoin. In Bitcoin, you are not given your Bitcoin as a block reward. You make your own block reward. You make your own Bitcoin. You give yourself your own Bitcoin is how that works. Sure. In our system, it's the same way. We just have a hybrid proof of work, proof of stake, where we still do all the proof of work for transactions to make sure everything is legit and there's no double spending, right? But we also have proof of stake that shows you're only getting a block reward. You're only getting an inflation reward if you were a staker, right? So we have a hybrid proof of stake, proof of work system that gives us the efficiency of not overpaying for security by paying a huge block reward inflation, which is just a protection racket in SHA-256. And we're only paying pennies of fees to miners. Now, as long as there's other successful projects on that ecosystem, we'll be very likely to be able to continue to pay pennies for fees. If everything else failed and it was just us left, well then, we could use the ERC20 to pay for fees instead. There's already code to do that. Like you can pay for your Ethereum block mining fees with an ERC20 token instead of the ETH itself. So at that point, we would just have our own fee market if we were the only surviving thing on there, but it seems quite unlikely.
Cool. Richard, I need to start my day here. It's
right.
getting 9:30. We're willing to get going here.
This conversation I thought was very good. I thought we talked about...
I would love to continue this, especially when maybe both projects are live.
When do you think you're launching?
We would love to launch before Christmas, but it's probably going to be after Christmas.
All right. You'll probably be a year late if it's a hard project. I thought modifying an ERC20 would be easy.
No. We have to test net up. It's really more a decision on when to launch rather than...
Okay. Well, look, I wish you luck. If you can make something work on Bitcoin, you'll be the first guy that makes it happen. And it is still a very good network, and it does have the most liquidity, and it does have the most regulatory certainty, and it does, transact almost as much volume as Tether. Hey, it was good talking to you, man. We'll do this again sometime.
I would love to. Cool, man.
All right.
Richard, appreciate it. Thanks for everything you're doing for the space, man.
Pleasure, brother. Bye.
Cheers.